This is the Secure Cyber Connect podcast with Adamson and Warren Atkinson, where we're joined by information cybersecurity, technology, and talent acquisition professionals. We share our journeys, unique perspectives, and offer advice and guidance.
Our topics on this episode will be accessibility versus cybersecurity. Today, we're truly honoured to be joined by Nathan Chung. Nathan is a multi-award-winning cybersecurity leader and a leading advocate for neurodiversity within the cybersecurity sector, committed to raising awareness and fostering inclusion for neurodivergent professionals across the industry. As a neurodivergent individual who was diagnosed later in life with autism, ADHD, alexithymia, and complex PTSD, Nathan has been recognised as the top 50 neurodiversity evangelist. And as a DE&I champion for the United Cybersecurity Alliance, alongside a high number of many other incredible awards, pays testament to his unwavering commitment, hard work, and endless contributions to both neurodiversity and the cyber sector in general. As an accomplished writer, speaker, and contributor, Nathan regularly writes articles about neurodiversity and seen his work published in a number of magazines such as Women in Security, 97 Things Every Information Security Professional Should Know, Varied Origins of the Cybermen, Volume 1, and City Pulse magazine. He can also be found regularly speaking at events such as the United Nations, UWIC, Uniting Women in Cyber, alongside many other major conferences across the globe. And he's a passionate advocate for community involvement. Nathan, welcome to the Secure Cyber Connect podcast, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely, and I'm honored to be here today.
That's brilliant. Jay and myself have really been looking forward to today's session, Nathan. And before we kick things off, could you give our audience a high-level overview of what we're going to be discussing today, Nathan?
Absolutely. So right now, I believe we're going through a golden age with assistive technology and accessibility tools that are powered by AI and have the possibility to help the millions upon millions of people throughout the world who have disabilities. However, despite that, a lot of people don't realize there's unfortunately one problem though. What about the cybersecurity? In fact, ironically, I just gave a talk about this at CES about last month at the Consumer Electronics Show, the largest tech event in the world. I saw lots and lots of great AI-powered technologies, but yeah, again, where's cybersecurity? What about cybersecurity risks? So I'm going to dive into this today.
That's brilliant. Really looking forward to that. And before we unpack all of that, could you perhaps share with us something that you're either proud of or excited about that typically isn't featured on your LinkedIn, Nathan?
Sure. So before I worked in cybersecurity, I worked in various roles. IT, like for example, one of my first jobs was for the police department in Hawaii, where I started off as a tech and I slowly climbed my way up. So it's weird because a lot of people who enter the cybersecurity field don't have that strong IT background, but I do.
And look, I mean, your journey as a neurodivergent individual and advocate for vulnerability and disability rights and cybersecurity is obviously very, very inspiring. And so this unique perspective, will give us obviously a valuable insight into the intersection of accessibility and security. And these areas can often be seen as opposing forces. What's the biggest challenge you've faced in navigating both the world of cyber and your own personal journey with neurodivergence? And how's this experience shaped your views on the need for more inclusive and secure digital environments?
So high level is negative stigma. Because think of it as a factory, like everyone, these want workers who can do the job. Unfortunately, this puts a lot of people with disabilities at disadvantage because the negative stigma says, oh wait, you can't do the job, you're different, you probably shouldn't be working here. So one good example I like to use is the X-Men from the comic books and TV series. I grew up watching that stuff where you see individuals who have powers, and the common theme throughout is they're different. People in our society, they don't like different. It just, at the very least, it makes, similar to X-Men, at the very least, it makes people uncomfortable. If someone different from us, we see them on the street, it makes people uncomfortable at the very least. At the most, it can inspire hate and other resentment. So it's very similar to the X-Men, which I grew up watching.
As a fellow X-Men fan, I think we realised just how ahead of its time that comic was, and subsequently the films, as in terms of its message, for sure. And look, in terms of cybersecurity and accessibility, look, they need to be interconnected. It's obviously equal protection for everyone. So in terms of usability and enhancing security, why should accessibility in cyber be considered interconnected? What makes balancing these two priorities so complex in today's digital landscape?
Yep. So high level is no longer a nice to have. Like before, accessibility was an afterthought, kind of like cybersecurity. You want to build, like say, a server, you want to build a brand new system. More times than not, security usually is not even considered. Even today, despite all the cybersecurity breaches, the demands of the business, like, hey, we got to get this product out the door. More times than not, cybersecurity is usually an afterthought. Like things are better now, but usually cybersecurity breaches are still happening. Similarly, accessibility is usually not even considered, usually not at all. However, we are seeing progress. Like, for example, the European Accessibility Act is forcing regulations onto people. So now it's like, too bad, you have to do this. Similarly, here in the US, we have the Section 508 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. It mandates federal employees, government agencies, programs to inject accessibility into other websites. Like when you look at the website, look at PDF file, it all has to be accessible now. However, I caution that is still up in the air because with the new president, the directives essentially to start removing accessibility. So despite everyone getting excited over Section 508 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, this requirement might go away. That makes me sad. And at a high level, cybersecurity accessibility needs to be balanced because even though you have accessibility, you still need to balance and address the cybersecurity threats.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we see a few partners here in the UK and across Europe actually struggling because of the reduction in funding to US aid, which is really concerning. There are individuals stepping forward to plug those funding gaps, and I'm hopeful that some of the lessons that we've learned over the last 12 months get carried over into 2025. But obviously, from an AI perspective, AI-driven tools are revolutionizing accessibility. In particular, over the last 12 months, we've seen organizations put that UX, user experience, at the forefront of what they're doing and ensuring that they're making accommodations for individuals that perhaps have struggled in the past. But with the rise of these AI-driven tools, what specific cybersecurity risks do you feel are being introduced to the ecosystem, Nathan? And how can we address these vulnerabilities without hindering the progress that we've seen over the last 12 to 24 months?
Yep, that's a great question. So yeah, the AI is powering a lot of the accessibility and assistive tool is great. It's wonderful. For example, when at CES, one of the demos I saw is they were showing me how people were able to log into their computer from their smartphone using facial gestures. Like that is incredible for a lot of people who can't even use a computer. They don't even have hands or can't even use their voice. So to be able to log into the computer with facial gestures, that is incredible. The flaw of some of these AI tools is a lot of them are cloud-based. They go out in the cloud. And in my work as a cybersecurity professional, the big flaw of the cloud is essentially you're trusting that the cloud is secure. You're trusting that all your data that's going out to the cloud or across the internet is going to be safe and secure. But sometimes, as we see over and over throughout the news, breaches are happening because the cloud is not always secure. So that's a huge piece that's missing. So the key to address it is, at the very least, basic cybersecurity hygiene. You got to build cloud security, build cloud resources securely. Make sure your S3 buckets are secure. Make sure that the right people have access to those buckets. Make sure you're constantly scanning and monitoring your infrastructure to look for any holes in your system. So, awkward term, it's not rocket science. You just got to practice, at the very least, basic cybersecurity hygiene and inject cybersecurity into these projects as people develop AI tools. So if you follow at least basic cybersecurity hygiene, that will reduce a lot of threats today.
No, that's brilliant. And as these tools evolve over the next 24, 36, 48 months, what proactive steps should developers make and take to ensure that security is built and that accessibility is at the forefront and it's built from the ground up and, of course, is sustainable moving forward? Are there any frameworks or best practices individuals perhaps can sort of take inspiration from, Nathan, in your experience?
Yep. So it's dependent upon which country you're in. Like, for example, in the US, we have NIST, CSF, and some companies they must follow PCI DSS, which is even more stringent. And I'm not sure what they use in the UK, but where we are in the world, there's this cybersecurity framework to be used. Next, developers, when they consider a new project, inject accessibility from the get-go. You'd be surprised, even one of the most inaccessible things in the world of IT is everything is almost entirely using the English language. What about the fellows from, like, say, from another country, in Germany or other countries that don't always speak English? So the English language itself is a challenge. As systems are automated, we have, like, for example, the DevOps pipeline, develop strong CI/CD pipeline where you continue, as code is continually developed, you're constantly scanning that code, meeting vulnerabilities, and pushing out the code to automate. Because that's the other buzzword these days: automation, make things faster, doing things more efficiently. But remember, constantly monitor, because even though code seems okay, the running joke in a lot of IT cybersecurity circles is a lot of code is reused. So you've got to make sure the code is secure and not insecure, and not sending things to, say, the hostile third-party country.
What's the impact if organizations or developers aren't sort of ensuring that the code's secure? Because we see a lot of developers obviously utilizing GitHub depositories, for instance, and we've seen instances in the news recently where threat actors have actually injected code in there months and even years ago, and they're looking to live off the land. So what other strategies can developers sort of double down upon from your experience?
Yep. So beyond the basic cybersecurity hygiene, it's also good to do threat hunting. Like, assume the bad guys are in your system. So have your threat hunters go in and constantly monitor and try to hunt down those bad guys. The other piece a lot of people don't realize is we are going through difficult times these days, like globally. Like, companies are struggling to just survive. So what I've seen, a lot of cuts to cybersecurity budgets and the push to do more with less. So instead of the glory day where you used to have dozens upon dozens of cybersecurity professionals within companies, now we're being told automate, use AI, you can do more with less. And that is leading to burnout. People are getting exhausted, people are getting frustrated. And despite all the things you see in the news about cybersecurity skills gap and millions of open jobs, it's not true. People in cybersecurity are losing their jobs due to the financial difficulties companies are facing. And I know a lot of friends are still out of work. That's the uncomfortable reality today.
No, I understand that. Appreciate it. It's a sensitive subject, and a lot of organizations are perhaps shying away from it. And we hope that today's discussions are shine a light upon it. And on the subject of obviously protecting those at-risk users, those individuals perhaps that are part of the vulnerable population, how can we ensure that the tools they use are adequately protective from cyber threats? And why is this particularly important for those vulnerable and disabled individuals, for instance, Nathan?
So yeah, the disabled individuals in particular, they're very vulnerable. Like, for example, a person that can barely use a computer, they are still dependent on, let's say, a caregiver or someone to help them with some basic tasks. So again, ironically, what's often said is the human factor is still the biggest risk. Because even if you, like, say you're a person who's living at home and you can't go out and you're relying on that one person, that person can still steal your passwords and still rob you. Just like the physical risks, the cybersecurity risks are still there if you are relying on another person. And that, sadly, I don't think it's not going away anytime soon. The human factor, that's still the biggest risk.
And do you think the developers or even sort of the products and solutions owners should be addressing this and be accountable to ensure that some of those vulnerable users are protected?
It's complex because the human element again, because reality is, besides the human, do we trust ourselves? Because we are putting so much faith in all these newfangled tools and technologies based on AI, but is the AI secure? I was actually happy with some of the responses from some of the people at CES, like for example, people were telling me, yes, your system AI assistant technology is using cloud, but it is using a secure cloud, for example, a dedicated cloud tenant. So that significantly helps with the increased security posture of that tool. However, the part that businesses don't like to have a dedicated, isolated cloud tenant costs more. That's the piece that businesses are not going to like.
Yeah, and I think that's where organizations are looking to implement SLMs as opposed to large language models. Excuse me. It's obviously more economic and user-friendly in that respect. Appreciate you sharing your perspective.
Always about the finance. Always about the finance. So look, in terms of inclusivity, Nathan, creating inclusivity within security systems is, as everyone knows, absolutely critical. And as it's becoming more and more of everyone's daily life, we certainly need to ensure that these barriers are continuously being broken down in terms of making the digital landscape a safer place for everyone. What role can neurodivergent individuals play in enhancing cybersecurity? And how can the industry really make sure that their needs are addressed within a secure environment?
So first, listen to neurodivergent people. When I look at the list of the neurodivergent thought leaders and champions from the UK, it's a long list. One thing I joke with my friends is if you look at who are the neurodiversity thought leaders in the world, vast majority of them are based in the UK. So my advice is number one, listen to the lived experience of the neurodivergent users who need help. Because it's not rocket science. Like when you get a new worker at your organization, you don't have to guess. Just ask them, what do you need? What do you need in order to thrive at this job? And a lot more times than not, they'll tell you. However, the big thing that is needed is psychological safety. They have to feel safe to be able to speak up. Because if you look at what's going on here in the US, it's sad. People are going the opposite route. They're feeling less and less safe. For example, if they're LGBTQIA+, or if they're different, or slowly but surely, there are more and more neurodivergent people and people who have disabilities who are just terrified and afraid of living in the US now because of the rhetoric coming from the new administration here in the US that just started last month. The other piece to it is when a new user is using a system, I liken it to, like, say, when you get into a new car for the first time, you're adjusting the seat, you can make sure you're comfortable. So for every single person, they have their own needs and wants, and they have their own likes. So they have to get comfortable. And at the same time, you got to balance out security. Things like make sure, like in the car example, like make sure you're changing the default password for the Bluetooth that's in the car. Like balance making the user comfortable and utilizing basic cybersecurity hygiene. I mean, things like changing your default passwords.
I mean, and from a challenges perspective, what are the challenges that neurodivergent individuals face when they're using cyber systems? Is there a way that these systems can be made more inclusive without compromising, the security aspect itself?
Yep. So high level, one of the things I shared during my talk at CS is I very much worry that despite all the benefits these AI-powered assistive and accessibility tools bring, because a lot of them are AI and cloud-based, I very much fear that in the event of a major security breach or incident, some people in my field may say, hey, the risks are too great. We cannot use these tools. The downside is people like disabilities like me would suffer. I think even basic things like captions we use every day, a lot of them are AI and cloud-based now. Assistive tools, voice text to speech. Just think about it. Just a lot of those basic tools are AI and cloud-based nowadays. So the key to it is just basic cyber hygiene and approaching it with a risk-based approach. For example, it's okay to have captions if you're in a meeting and you're only talking about like public knowledge. Think items that are publicly available, like who won the Super Bowl yesterday, what did you eat for dinner, things like that. But as soon as you dive into talking about mission critical information that are, like, say, top secret or classified information, or even PII, which is governed by privacy restrictions, you gotta change it up. You gotta consider not having a purely cloud-based system that's not secure. You gotta, consider turning the captions off. But if you do have captions, use something that is secure. So think of it that way. Just start from the basics, go through your data classification frameworks, and apply the security controls based on what you're talking about and the classification of the data and the content of the meeting.
And are there any other sort of urgent changes? I mean, is there anything that you see really needs to happen now, to create a safer, more accessible digital landscape for everybody?
Yep. So high level, I liken it to the time when computers were first introduced, because I'm sure you all remember, like when computers were first introduced, there was fear, just outright fear, and people were just terrified that computers are gonna take over the world. With AI, it's history repeating itself. People are afraid. So for that, my advice is don't wait. Start identifying these technologies and start identifying and addressing the cybersecurity risks of AI now, because I guarantee you people in your organizations and your friends are using AI tools today. And when you look at companies like Microsoft, they're not giving us a choice. They're injecting AI into Office, Windows, and they're just ramming, like a return, they're ramming it down our throats. So it's better to start getting ahead of the curve now. Like for example, even for Windows, you can, if you're part of a company, you can turn off many of those AI features. So if you're in a heavily regulated industry where you're dealing with, say, PII, credit card information, healthcare information, you need to secure everything, Windows, your Office, your critical infrastructure from the get-go, like from the ground up. Like don't wait till someone rams AI down your throat and next thing you know, someone's credit card information and PII are on the internet and we're in violation of all the various privacy standards, regulatory frameworks. So get ahead of the game now, address AI, control your environments, address cybersecurity risks.
And for organizations that are perhaps being a bit ignorant to this and a bit unproactive as such, setting aside DORA and even CRA, so the Cyber Resilience Act, for instance, what responsibilities do organizations have in driving these changes, and how can they start by integrating better security practices that, of course, increase their accessibility strategies, enhance that?
Yeah, to be honest, I'm not too acquainted with the European cybersecurity standards, and it's Monday, I didn't have enough coffee. But again, high level, just basic cybersecurity practices. After I had basic cybersecurity practices, identify the risks before introducing new AI tools in your environment. At the same time, if you're not sure, it's okay to turn off the AI tools until you're safe and secure.
Oh, that's great.
That's a really important piece of advice that a lot of people, I think that's one thing that definitely people need to be aware of, is that they can turn these things off. Absolutely.
No, I certainly agree with you. And I know myself and Jay were looking at a study most recently, and I think it was the one from the UK government. It highlighted the skills gap here in the UK as well as across the globe. And that's certainly increased about sort of 15% in comparison to last year. I think it's at around sort of 4 million now globally. But we've also identified that on a global scale, roughly 15 to 20% of individuals are perhaps neurodiverse. And in the UK in particular, you're looking at 1 in 6 individuals. And what is concerning is that all of those brilliant minds bring unique perspectives to the table. Over 75% of neurodiverse individuals across the globe are unemployed or actively seeking work. And one thing I know, Jay, myself, as well as you, Nathan, really work hard to do is raise awareness of the available talent out there and, of course, lowering the barriers of entry for those individuals. So you've got some time now, you've got the platform. What do you want to say directly to hiring managers and organizations that are really passing up the opportunity to engage with neurodiverse individuals that are perhaps discounting them because of the inability to perhaps concentrate, look someone in the eye? It is an educational piece today, so use this platform to speak directly to those organizations.
Absolutely, and I'm happy you brought that up. So high level, neurodivergent individuals bring a lot to the table. In terms of competitive advantage in the cyber field, we can do things like find a needle in a haystack, pattern recognition, hyper-focus, where that translates to competitive advantage in the cyber field. Think like the threat hunters, the pen testers. If they're hyper focused on the task at hand, they are very efficient. And we can look historically, just look at even the UK history, like Alan Turing. He helped to crack the Enigma code, and that led to the World War II ending faster. So we need to remember history and many individuals who are probably neurodivergent. Even Steven Branson, he's one of the neurodivergent. Many individuals like that, front and center, they prove the power and the competitive advantage being neurodivergent brings. Even in the UK, we look at even I hear like MI5 or MI6, they're actively recruiting neurodivergent individuals because they see the advantage. I believe there's even studies done by the UK government where they identified a high correlation between hackers and neurodivergent individuals. Plus, the plus side, that shows the benefit, that shows that many neurodivergent individuals will thrive, like say, as a pen tester. The minus side, it creates stereotypes. People think, hey, I'm neurodivergent, I should automatically consider tech or cyber. In my view, that is a stereotype, and that is also wrong because yes, they could thrive in cybersecurity, but they might like working in other fields, like being a photographer or working in the arts or movies, like something that's more creative. So every individual is different. Every individual will potentially like different jobs. The other piece to it is there is no normal. We live in a society where we very much demonize people who are normal, like the X-Men. But similar to X-Men, there are a lot of extraordinary people out there, even within your own families, your own friends. But you're surprised. The other thing I talk about in some of my talks, I just recorded a podcast a few days ago. The piece that a lot of people don't talk about is the culture, race, and country of origin. Like, for example, I have a friend from Italy. She's telling me, like, in their families, they don't talk about this. You can't get help. These conditions don't exist. You just gotta do better. Similar to me, like, I am an Asian. In Asian culture, and because I'm in Asian culture, puts up a lot of invisible barriers that say, don't talk about these things. There's nothing wrong with you. It's a lot of it is a stigma because, like, for example, autism, scientists have shown there is a genetic component to it. So it's some of these conditions are spread in the gene pool when you have children, but Asian culture says it's bad. You cannot go against your parents. You cannot make them look bad. You cannot make the family look bad. But again, the cultural piece, a lot of people in the neurodiversity movement globally, for some reason, they don't address that too much, like the impact of race. To give you another example, a woman of color who talked to me, shared with me her story, where her own mom would tell her, don't worry about it. God will heal you of your autism. Just go to church and God will heal you. Things like that. It's like, if you can't talk about it within your own families, it's really hard to get help. Because I know for a fact, like, there are a lot of differences. Like, for example, my friends in the UK joke that things in the US are better, and we in the US, we joke things in the UK are better. So that piece, a lot of people don't talk about. Like, yes, UK has a better healthcare system, but there is a long waiting list, like years upon years of waiting to get that diagnosis. Whereas here in the US, we can pay, like, say, $10,000 to $15,000 to get the diagnosis quicker. So it's a trade-off. Another piece what a lot of people don't even realize, talk about, is women. The women who are neurodivergent. Because I have a lot of friends from Europe. They don't get diagnosed until they're in their 40s or 50s. It's sad. And similar to me, throughout their life, they just suffer. They suffer because they need help, and they can't get help from the government. They can't get help from their families. So what do you do? So similarly, like, there is a correlation. Like, in the cybersecurity and tech fields, the percentage of women is roughly around 20-30%. Similarly, in the neurodiversity field, the percentage of women who get diagnosed, like, say, autism, is similar, like around 20%. Because again, the stereotype of a person, like, say, with autism or ADHD is usually that of a white male. So if you don't fall in that bucket, well, the doctors say you can't possibly have autism.
Yeah, it's a challenge a lot of individuals find themselves in. My little brother, for instance, I remember when he was growing up, even when he was younger, it was hard to get support because he wasn't ticking 10 out of 10 boxes, he was only ticking a few. What about Jay? What about your sort of opinion on this or your experience? What can organisations perhaps be doing to do more?
I think there's been a big change in the overall perspective on this, Nathan. And I think it's definitely, I think I've seen in the last few years, as we've talked about this more and more, and we've had a few guests on discussing this as well. But I think big, organizations are, and I think certainly recognizing, things more as a gift in terms of people's abilities a lot of the time now, and what they bring to the organizations, that they are these antiquated mentality and assumptions of people that these are going to be a hindrance to an organization. Couldn't be more different within many companies now. And I think whilst you've talked about cyber being somewhat stereotypical within this space, I do think that as an industry, it is absolutely spearheading the neurodivergence attributes that the workforce brings. And so I think it's certainly, if we can build out from that into other industries, then more power to that. But I think it's certainly changed a lot. And I think organizations, we've seen a lot of, I think HR, and organizations have talked a good game over the last few years, Nathan, as the markets have been a little bit less bullish. Let's hope that as the markets start to recover, which we're seeing now, that they practice what they preach. So I think these last couple of years in the tech and cyber sector, which has been somewhat more challenging from an employment perspective, I think it's given people time to really level up their mentality and get, and hopefully that will translate into the workforce and hiring processes going forward. That's my opinion from what I've seen, for sure.
Absolutely. And by the way, before I forget, I do a big thanks to Neurocyber in the UK. They've been doing an incredible job in the UK. They've been doing research studies and working with the government, and they are usually found at the big cybersecurity conferences, showcasing and highlighting neurodiversity in the cybersecurity profession. So big thanks to Neurocyber.
Is that Steph? We know Steph, and we have her on a community platform. Doing an amazing job. So absolutely, we echo that for sure.
And Nathan, from your perspective, how important are communities and initiatives and events? How important are they for fostering collaboration and support?
They're huge. Unfortunately, the piece people don't talk about is a lot of the tech conferences and events are not accessible. To give you an example, me and my friend, her name's Kat Cantillo, she led an effort to create a neurodiversity inclusion event checklist. So it's a quick guide to help organizations make their events more secure. Like, for example, having a sensory quiet room. So when we're overwhelmed from all the lights and all the people and loud noise, we can go to a quiet room and relax. And it's like hitting a restart button on your brain. The other piece to it is, the big reason why we needed that is, I did a poll on LinkedIn to ask, when people with disabilities go to these conferences, do they feel that their disability needs are met? The vast majority of the people who said no were women. That tells me that the vast majority of women with disabilities feel that these events are not accessible to them, and so they don't even bother going. I think we can do better. More accessibility is needed, and we can do a better job there.
Most definitely. I've attended a few events in most recent times where they've made certain accommodations, like having the quiet rooms or even headsets for individuals that perhaps need that space and need to focus and be away from the main groups, but also gives them the opportunity to mingle at will, which of course is equally as important. And as we move on from this topic, could you perhaps share with us some advice and guidance for those junior individuals entering the cybersecurity remit versus those senior individuals perhaps looking to take a step up into more leadership positions?
That's a great question. I think off the top of my head, number one is learn AI. Because like it or not, AI is here to stay. So gotta learn AI. Because when you look at a lot of cybersecurity job descriptions today, they require AI. I even saw one, say, at Microsoft, where they're looking for a someone who can pen test AI that pays insane amount of money. So that number one is, number one is learn AI. Number two, have mentors, because growing up, nobody told me I need a mentor, but I've seen many individuals who are younger than me who are benefiting from having a mentor guide their career journey. Number three, a sponsor. Despite, in addition to having a mentor, a sponsor can help you. Like, say you meet them at a conference, they're willing to help guide your career and help you perhaps get into a job. A sponsor is tremendously helpful. Number four is volunteering, because a lot of the things, despite all the things I've done working in the cybersecurity field, one of the things that helped me stand out, especially when applying for new jobs, is the volunteer work I've done. Give back to the community, help out the next generation, help people out, help the event thrive. Because right now, the big challenge here in the US is the new government and the economy. So people need help. People, like at the cybersecurity conferences, they need volunteers. So I encourage everyone to volunteer and give back.
I think it's a great way to grow your network as well, and demonstrate that you're willing to go that extra mile. And of course, you can achieve some practical experience. Neurocyber, WISIS, for instance, I know they're very active. And one thing that we're actually launching in the coming days here at Secure Cyber Connect Community is our affiliate and partnership program that allows individuals to sort of contribute whenever they've got time, but also at varying different levels. We could have contributors and partners and sponsors. So to our audience, please join the community and sort of reach out to us to find further details on that.
And Nathan, look, as we come to the back end of the episode, we always tend to ask our guests one of their sort of favorite analogies. We know that the cyber industry is awash with analogies in terms of simplifying technical concepts or describing the cyber sector as a whole. What's your favorite analogy that you got, your go-to analogy, if you will?
I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but my biggest advice is know your audience and craft your story based on the individual you're targeting. For example, if a person likes numbers, speak in numbers.
Good advice. So look, what does the future hold for you, Nathan? What does it look like? So what does 2025 look like for you going forward?
High level, just trying to survive the chaos here in the US. I want to keep helping people, keep advocating, because despite the difficulties of living in the US right now, as a person with multiple non-apparent disabilities, I'm going to keep advocating for people, keep educating, and keep being a voice for people who need help and who cannot necessarily speak for themselves. I might even start a new podcast. We'll see.
Well, look, keep shining, Nathan, for sure. And for our listeners who want to stay connected beyond the podcast, where else can they reach out to you?
Today, I'm mostly on LinkedIn, but I can share with you links after. I'm also on Blue Sky. Blue Sky is a new safe place. It's kind of like old Twitter. It's much more friendly. But yeah, LinkedIn and Blue Sky for me.
Fantastic. Well, look, Nathan, we'd like to say a huge thank you. I'm sure that all our community and our listeners would have found a huge amount of value in today's episode. And for anyone who wants to continue the discussion and for more sustained engagement, as always, we invite you to join the Secure Cyber Connect community platform, where we offer a range of collaborative solutions to both technology and security professionals at no cost. This is expansive community access, mutual mentoring, online networking, and range of exclusive interviews such as this, with panel discussions and masterclasses coming throughout 2025. If you want to know more or gain access to the Secure Cyber Connect community and any of our initiatives, please visit secure-recruitment.com/cyber-connect/. We look forward to joining us. Take care. Thank you.